In this video, we will tell the full story of Thomas Perez Jr., a mentally ill man who was interrogated for 17 continuous hours and forced to confess to a murder he did not commit. This case undeniably proves that the police have reached the highest levels of mind control and their ability to strip a person of their free will in less than a day. But before we start, don't forget to subscribe to the channel for more videos. Now, let's begin the story of the case. The incident began on the evening of Tuesday, August 7, 2018, when Thomas Perez Sr., who lived with his son, left the house with their dog to get the mail. Some time passed, and Perez Jr. was shocked when only the dog returned without his 71-year-old father. On Wednesday, August 9, 2018, Perez Jr. called 911 to report his father missing. From this moment, the grim events of the case began to unfold. Officer Joanna Pina received Perez Jr.'s call, and according to her testimony, she found his behavior suspicious and unconcerned about his father's disappearance. She and her supervisor, Sergeant Sheila Foley, went to Perez's house to take his statement. The details of their encounter with Perez at his home were not documented, but certainly they didn't follow proper protocol. The most glaring proof of this is that when they began to suspect Perez, they took him to the police station for questioning without reading him his Miranda rights. You'll notice in this case that from the very start, Fontana police assumed the roles of judge and psychologist without any regard for the law or logic. Logically, if an officer sees someone unconcerned about their missing father and exhibiting strange behavior, they should ask if the person is using drugs or taking psychiatric medication. These logical questions could have saved everyone involved a great deal of injustice and suffering. The officers searched the house and found a red stain on the stairs, which they believed to be blood. This discovery was a decisive blow to Perez Jr., because the officers were now highly convinced that he had killed his father. Meanwhile, Perez Jr. had been taken to the station where his photo was taken. When you look at the photo, you'll notice that Perez's expression shows neither sadness nor joy because he was on psychiatric medication for depression, which can make facial expressions difficult to read. The officers informed detectives David Janusz and Kyle Guthrie about the details, and they entered the interrogation room. The interrogation began with routine questions about his father's disappearance and whether there were any conflicts between them. However, the detectives were convinced that Perez had killed his father, and they started pressuring him, suggesting that he might have done it and forgotten. Perez spent hours denying he had killed his father. He informed the detectives that he suffered from a mental illness and needed his medication, but they ignored his request and intensified their pressure, telling him he had killed his father and that his mind had erased the incident to protect him. Perez continued to deny the accusations, even as he began experiencing withdrawal symptoms from his psychiatric medications. He started pulling out his hair, hitting himself, and tearing off his shirt, nearly collapsing. Seeing this, the detectives pressed him further, telling him that his dog would be euthanized because it had witnessed the crime, which would traumatize the dog. When the detectives saw that Perez continued to deny the accusation, they took him on a tour around the city, hoping he might remember where he had killed his father. During this tour, they continued pressuring him to admit to the crime and show them where the body was, but Perez kept denying it. The detectives returned Perez to the police station and told him they had found his father's body with multiple stab wounds and that he was the killer. At this point, Perez broke down and falsely confessed to the murder. The detectives, feeling victorious after more than 17 hours of pressuring an innocent, mentally ill man, left the interrogation room, leaving Perez and his dog inside. Perez, in deep despair, hugged his dog tightly and then attempted to kill himself. The officers rushed to save him and took him to a psychiatric hospital, where they informed the hospital that he was a suspect in the case and prevented any contact with him. It was only then that they read him his Miranda rights, which was the first time Perez Jr. heard them. Meanwhile, the biggest surprise occurred when the police received a call from Perez's sister, informing them that their father was alive, having spent the previous night at a friend's house and was now at the airport heading to visit her. The officers knew this but did not release Perez. Instead, they placed his dog in a shelter. Perez remained in isolation for 3 full days, believing both his father and dog were dead. Perez was released from the hospital after his sister's statement was verified. The first thing he did was track down his dog using its GPS chip and successfully retrieve it. However, he still had one more thing to reclaim: his dignity and justice for the psychological torment he had endured. Perez and his family approached attorney Jerry Steering, who had over 40 years of experience suing the police, and told him about the incident. Steering began gathering information and reviewing the interrogation footage, stating that he had never seen such a level of deliberate cruelty in his entire career. In defense, the Fontana police defended their actions with various arguments, including that the dog had sniffed the red stain, indicating it was blood, and that Perez's instability and suspicious behavior justified their actions. Let us know your thoughts in the comments. Were these pieces of evidence sufficient to justify the systematic torture Perez endured, or were they just flimsy defenses? These defenses prolonged the trial for about 6 years. In May 2024, the court awarded Perez approximately $898,000 in compensation. This verdict had to be approved by the city council, which happened, but not before Fontana police were implicated in another incident in 2023 where they killed a person from behind, claiming he was armed, despite no evidence of him attempting to use the weapon. Don't forget to subscribe to the channel for more videos.